We'll try this once again. That last feed wasn't an achiever. Now this hopefully this feed 10B will be an achiever. That's what I am, and I'm achiever. I'm streaming the video. Yeah. So they extended the lockdown here till to the 10th of December, citing some statistical bullshit modeling thing, and it's it's all bollocks. I mean, it's total bullshit. There's no need for it. And it's just, a demographic of hysterical hypochondriacs are justifying it. And, it's just got ridiculous. So, with the whole thing in decay, they're now making face masks compulsory. And now, this is rather sinister. Now, you know how I've been telling you that the New World Order, whatever you want to call it, the One World Government, the globalists, the motherfuckers who run the show, they want Islam as the global religion. And I explained in another video why they want Islam. They don't care. They just want. They wouldn't care if it was Christianity or Islam. Christianity failed. A lot of it had to do with the sex scandals in the Catholic Church, and also people got wise to got wise to it, and then they brought in they popularized things like humanism and atheism with the hope of making cultural Marxism a kind of a secular religion, but people still have a desire for a spiritual path. So that's why they've chosen Islam to be the global religion, and because they don't care. Once it's an Abrahamic religion, once it's monotheist, they don't care. Now, firstly, let me talk about why that's important in the context of Ireland right now. Uh, they're planning to have a mass for Eid, which is the Islamic festival of sacrifice, where in some parts of the Islamic world, literally they have rivers of animal blood running down the streets, like torrents, like rivers. And they kill millions upon millions of animals. Now, I know we do that here in the West for our food and stuff like that. But the thing is, they do it themselves. They cut the tree. This is why they're so good at beheading. If you look at how they behead in most circumstances, not that I'd watch those videos, but you'd see them holding a knife. They cut the head off. They cut the head off an infidel the same way they'll cut the head off a sheep. It's the same. It's the same style of decapitation, and the animals all see each other being beheaded. And this now, where it's happening right now in Ireland is there's a huge stadium in Dublin called Croke Park. Now, now I'm not a fan of Gaelic games. I do like hurling, but I don't like Gaelic football. I don't think it's a very good game. But if you if you've seen the movie Michael Collins, do you remember the scene where the British Army came into the stadium and started killing people? They started machine gunning, shooting people in the crowd and stuff like that. Well, that happened in that stadium, and players were killed, and spectators were shot dead by the British Army. And this was on Bloody Sunday, 1920, I think it was. And it was a defining moment in the Irish War of Independence, because it swung the whole population around against British rule, even the ones that were not particularly Republican. It was a defining moment. And well, that stadium is where this is happening. Now, to say that's hollow, you hear this whole thing of stadiums are hallowed ground, they said about like Old Trafford or, Yankee Stadium. They say a stadium is hallowed ground. Well, if there's one stadium in the world that absolutely is hallowed ground, it's Croke Park in Dublin. Now, it's one of the biggest stadiums in Europe. Its capacity is something like 90,000. And it's a fabulous looking stadium. It's a modern stadium, but it's the grass that's on is sacred soil because people were killed by the British Army there, and that's literally hallowed ground. And there's a gigantic terrace at the back that's never been covered over, and it's called Hill 16. And the reason why it's called Hill 16 is it was made of the rubble of the city that were taken out of the city of Dublin at the beginning, what was ostensibly the Irish War of Independence in Easter 1916. And so to say that this stadium and its grass is sacred to the Irish people is just it's not an overstatement. It's an actual fact, right? even though I'm not of that kind of ilk. I'm not a Republican and so on, but I do, when you go into that stadium, you're made very aware of the history of the place and what went on there. And it's on the north side of Dublin where I grew up, and we were sort of like all raised with that kind of mythology and so on. That not mythology, legacy, the history, the historical legacy, and so they're going to have a mass sacrifice for Eid inside the stadium. I'm not sure. I'm not kidding you. And the reason why they picked that stadium is because it's the biggest in the city. They can get social distancing people in of 500. So they can get the most Muslims in there watching sheep having their throats cut on the same grass where Irish men and women were gunned down by the British Army during the War of Independence. Now, we already, again, I'm not Mr. Super Republican, Mr. Super Patriot or anything like that, but Irish government ministers are going to be standing there. The same Irish government ministers who, on Easter Sunday this year, hoisted the United Nations flag next to the Irish flag as they're obsessed. This Leo Varadkar, he's now the deputy prime minister, is a Zoolander type figure, and they're obsessed with destroying this nation, top to bottom. And so someone had pointed out that in at the same time they're making this massive Muslim festival of sacrifice happen in a stadium where it should not happen. It shouldn't happen in any stadium. It should happen in their own mosques or whatever, their own private property. Let them buy a piece of ground and do it there, rather than use use Irish stadiums, and all this diversity bullshit. Right now, this is just unbelievable. But it's one more thing to the Irish people to say you're doomed, you're finished. That's what literally every statement that comes out of every Irish politician's mouth these days is looking at the Irish people and saying, we're here to destroy you and we're here to finish you off. And that's literally government policy, regardless of the parties, particularly Sinn Féin and the Greens, but all of them, they're the same. We're here to destroy. That's what they say. Every single one of them have the same mandate. We are here to destroy 6,000 years of Gaelic culture. We're here to destroy it. And that's that. They openly say it now. And so this thing is happening in the stadium. And someone pointed out on Twitter that it happened the same week that they made the face burkers mandatory. Now, you add to that the fact that all the pubs are closed, just like in a Muslim country, you can't go out and have a drink. And women, it's been shown now that the majority of people who've lost their jobs because of the lockdown in Ireland were women. So all the women are home, just like in a Sharia law. And Sinead O'Connor, rather than be seen as an attention-seeking fruitcake, is an inspiration, apparently they tell us. So there's two things to this. It's proof positive that and your country too, you'll find that, and with the exception of the United States, you'll find too that as Islam has been shoved down your face, and like in the north of England, the Islamic grooming gangs were given given an easy time by the police, and they even closed the files on who they are because they did say it was in the public interest. They don't want the English people finding out that there are armies of young Muslim men targeting their teenage and underage daughters. They couldn't let that out and make that known. At the same time, too, they're introducing all these hate speech laws. So they haven't. If you see the hate speech laws that are being planned for Ireland right now, literally, I could be picked up right now and thrown in jail for making this video. This is to stop any criticism. The reason why they call it hate speech is because politicians hate it. Because hate speech to them is the truth. That's what politicians hate. And again, I know good Muslim people. I'm not putting down Muslim. You can't. Your fault you're born into a culture and a religion. That's your business. And I've no problem with people being Islamic, and I've no problem with people being Muslims in Ireland. I do resent when the government is turning around and changing my nation's culture in order for that. That's wrong. If this is colonialism from within, this is Sharia from within. No, so that's where that's gone. But what also what we're getting is an insight into how Christianity. See, I pissed off lots of Christians when I made that video talking about amazing Polly, and again I wasn't putting the woman down. And then somebody made some very good points. He says you have to understand, Thomas, in the USA, Christianity doesn't have the bad name it has in Europe. For they don't, the Americans weren't genocided by Christians the way Europeans were in the past with the Crusades and the Prussian Crusades, etc., the Swedish Crusades, and my answer to that was, well, manifest destiny. Your native pagans, the Native Americans, were from the minute Christopher Columbus landed in Hispaniola to Andrew Jackson's manifest destiny, which was basically ethnic cleansing of pagan Indians west of the Mississippi. It's gone on there too. It's just that it hasn't affected your ancestors. And also lots of groups like Irish Americans, the Catholic Church would have been kind of the central focus for them. But like, we're now getting an insight to see how Christianity took over in like Ireland. It would have been the same way. It would have been the Christians would have come in, just like in Catherine Nixie's The Darkening Age, and would have begged for tolerance and say, oh, we're a new religion, we deserve minorities treatment, which is the Romans and the Greeks gave them. And you'd had wealthy Christians families in the Roman Empire who would have funded schools and militias and crusades and this kind of, well, crusade, but evangelical missions, Judas Iscariot, Judas the knife, Rocky, Paul, Petra, Rocky. So he hung out, you look at Jesus and he hung out with a gang, and this is Judas Iscariot, an assassin's knife. And that's what it was all about. And so you had all the same things happening in Europe today with Islamic attacks, jihad, in tandem with it's the religion of peace. Islam means peace, which it doesn't. It means conquest, but it means peace. And along with these are they believe in they deserve human rights. Of course they do, but that doesn't mean they're going to give it to us when they get into power. Just like the Christians took it away from the pagans. And that's what happened. You can actually see, read Catherine Nixie's The Darkening Age and read it in the context of 2020 and replace Christians with Muslims. And you'll see exactly the same Abrahamic method. Beg for tolerance, had laws changed to cater to their lifestyle. When they got into government, they abolished the cultures who showed them tolerance. They destroyed the Greek and Roman empires. And they're destroying the European project now. European, when I say I mean in the EU sense, I mean as the triumph of the European peoples, the continent, and that includes Ireland and Britain as well, not politically, culturally, and so it's happening the same way. And so, and of course, there's no hope in this country because if I look at all the patriots here, they're all mad Christians. So they're fighting one foreign invader with their own foreign invader. None of them are Irish, really. And Niall Murphy, Mr. Opaque Lens, made a very good video this morning, and he's right, and this is what I've been saying for so long, is that the answer is paganism. The one thing they don't want us doing is not being monotheistic. And polytheism drives them insane because if you believe in many gods, and even as archetypes, and don't have to actually believe in them, very few, I don't actually believe in these gods like Flora and Minerva and the Morrigan. To me, they're archetypes expressing dynamics of the consciousness and elements of the cosmos. And that's how they work for me. And to some people they're literal, but to me they do have a magical power of them, but they also I'm less likely to seek a boss. If you have one God in heaven, you're going to need one boss on earth, one boss in your job, one governor, one president, one king, one pope, one sire, one sultan. One government, one law, one rule. Where if you're polytheistic, you're not as easy to pin down with one thing. And that's why they don't want anyone discovering their polytheistic pagan roots. And because, that's another thing too. I mean, like in the article I've written on chaos paganism, I even suggested perhaps going back. No, we can't do it literally, but going back to a 13-month calendar, lunar calendar, that even anything to offset your entrapment within the matrix, like I always said, every subatomic particle is a potential, and it begins from the subatomic world up. And how you do that is you do that with your changing your consciousness. So if I was in a state of fear now about what was coming with Islam and taking over Europe and the West, I don't think it'll take over the United States, but it'll definitely take over Canada. I would not, I would be in a different mindset, but because I'm not in a state of fear and I can see the absurdities of it, and I also know it won't last. It's it's an observational point of view, but not one that's fatalistic. I'm like a scout. That's how you should be. Observe the news in the same way a scout or a reconnaissance operative would in the military, and just bring back data and don't bring back feelings. There's a good mantra to live by. That's a good one now. Observe and record and get intelligence and reconnaissance about what's going on in what they're doing to us, with this whole thing, this whole planet gaslighting, critical theory sort of thing, and bring back data information that you can use as a survival tool, but don't bring back the negative emotions, because they will make you make mistakes. They'll affect your health and everything. And so I think that's that's what's happening here right now. And yes, it can seem very sinister and dark, but at the same time too, I'm not blaming ordinary Muslims. I would never I'd never hassle ordinary Muslim people, because they're just like those. They're victims of the globalists too. Like I was in Dubai last year, and I was in the first class Emirates lounge, thanks to a friend, a very close friend of mine, who got me into the lounge. And I was really seeing how the other half live, and it was like unbridled luxury. There was practically people to wipe your arsehole. And if you were in there and you were either a European or an Arab with money, you were treated like absolute. The indulgence was unbelievable. I mean, you didn't just have chocolate biscuits, you had like boxes of Belgian chocolates that had just been opened, and the most expensive one to help yourself, like not bottles of sparkling wine or Prosecco, bottles of the best champagne, and 8 o'clock in the morning if you want it. And chefs will cook you anything you want, and the food is absolutely gorgeous, and everything beautifully laid out. And that's, but you go into the toilets and there's a person there, hello sir, can I help you? And it's a Filipino, and you see how he is, or he's a poor Arab. And so it's just because it's the Islamic delivery system. They're mainlining it doesn't mean it's Muslim people, the ordinary people. It'll be the same system where it haves and have nots, but it'll be more extreme, because they look at Dubai and they say that's what we want. That's what we want, like or Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, or Doha in Qatar. That they look at those places. That's what we want. That's what we want. And they're going to do everything to get it. Now I'm going to make a prediction. Now in Ireland, it's moving really fast, the whole Muslim agenda thing, especially at government level, much faster than the UK, where it's more on the street. But here it's definitely progressing at a rapid pace. I'm going to make a prediction. You're going to have suddenly Irish government ministers announcing massive investment by Saudi and Gulf states in Ireland. You just watch the news. Over the next year or two, you're going to have some sheiks and some Arabs buying up whole sections of Irish depressed cities and rebuilding them, you're going to see that massive investment in Ireland by Arab oil money. You just watch. And because in 2009 you had a blasphemy law, which has now been struck off the books, was brought into this country by a justice minister, and no one asked for it. My suspicion is that was around the same time that Emirates Airlines opened up major routes into Dublin. And I'm not putting down Emirates as a great airline and everything, but uh, I think that was like a fob, a sales pitch to them. And yeah, I mean, again, it's very easy to sound be despondent about, but don't be despondent. Like, it's not the amount of tractors on the road today is unbelievable. Well, I'm glad the farmers are out doing they're cutting the hay. We've had such damp weather, so just the first like 24 hours of dryness we've had. So I guess the weather's improving. It is warm today, even though it's overcast. But the farmers are out making silage, which is a very beautiful cultural thing in rural Ireland. That and cutting the turf, and the politicians attacked the turf cutting. They said the peat bogs and the harvesting of them was causing global warming. I mean, this, you see, our cultural things to our very core are being wiped out. It's like if you come if my hometown Dublin, if you come and to the city and you are in the city centre, say, which is ostensibly between the two canals. There's the city centre is ringed by two canals, the Royal Canal and the Grand Canal, and so the city centre is in between those two canals. You could spend a month there and not meet an Irish person. And that's what it's like now, and not meet an Irish person. There's lots of Irish in the suburbs and stuff like that, especially in the south side, not so much the north side. But the south, because that's money, it's wealthy people. But they have the money to buy their little gated communities, while they tell the rest of us while they vote for multiculturalism. A place like Renla in Dublin, you know, it's full of all woke types. But it's like 90% white, and they're all for inclusion and diversity. But from my neighbourhood, I grew up in Ballymun, which is like there's no one left there now. The north side neighbourhoods are the Irish have been basically ethnically cleansed out of many of them. And so, like, yeah, you could, like, there was someone showed a picture of some graffiti on O'Connell Street, which is the main street strip on the north side, and it said, "Where are all the Irish gone?" Someone had written that on the wall. It's true. It just is so, it's just how it is. And it's, again, if people come here and assimilate, I've no problem with that. I don't care what their origin, doesn't bother me, and their skin color doesn't bother me or anything like that. But it's you don't create you don't create diversity by destroying one culture. And again, like my analogy of the multicolored, they don't want multiculturalism. They want one mass of brown plasticine, not the individual colored strips of brown. They want all mushed in together into one brown mass, of halal plasticine. That's their plan for the world. It's as clear as day. You can't see it. Now, you still have all these idiots on the internet who can't see it. Like I pointed out on Twitter that, like, what actually goes on with this festival of slaughter in the Islamic world, and showed pictures of Dakar and other cities where the streets were literally rivers of blood, of animals' blood. And then these Irish people saying things like, this is what goes on in Irish farms. First of all, they don't slaughter animals on Irish farms. They're taken to a slaughterhouse. And I know there's loads of problems, but that, the whole, industrial meat and all that stuff is pretty appalling, even though I'm a carnivore myself. But, I'm not happy about that. I wish there was a better, they treated animals better. But it's just that I can't. My body is just not suited to a vegetarian or a lifestyle. I'm definitely not going vegan. And that's why I mostly eat fish, because they live wild in the sea. I know that's an excuse and a rational. I know, but I'm only human. I can only do so much. I don't seek perfection off anyone else, so I'm certainly not going to seek it in myself. And yeah, so like they've got everything they want now. All their ducks all our halal ducks are in a row. But it's even with that, it's still staggering to me what the stunt they pulled off in Croke Park by any. Now, you see, if that was suddenly pulled at the last minute, then the Muslims in Ireland, well, the Muslim leadership in Ireland the Islamic Council of Ireland will say, "Oh, the Irish were racist to us," this whole thing. They'll change the narrative, and the woke and the politically correct will help them change that narrative. Look how we treated the Muslims. We didn't respect their festival. Look, I have no problem with them doing this. But don't, it's almost like the powers that be in Ireland, this Republic of Woke, this communist nation that we're in, they deliberately picked Croke Park to deliberately do this. It's almost like the government and all the political parties. Now, don't get yourself that I'm a Fianna Fáil man. Labour wouldn't do that. No, they're all the same, motherfucker. They. It's almost like this that this is what's happening in Croke Park is not a sacrifice of sheep. It's a sacrifice of the Irish. That's really what it is. It's a sacrifice of the Irish. And those girls in England, they were the sacrifice of the English in the group that were given to the grooming gangs. They were sacrificed to the. They were sacrificed for the English. That's the English sacrifice, and it's what's happening in Croke. We're being the infidel is not being so much beheaded now in the Middle East, but being attacked. Is being beheaded. This is where we beheading. Bad joke, I know, but there you go. There you go. But what can we do about it? I don't know. Like again, it's not the average Muslim in the streets problem or his fault or her fault. You don't blame them. It's our politicians, the Western politicians, who are really the ones doing it, and they're evil psychopaths. They create hate speech to protect themselves, not to protect Muslims or minorities, protect their policies. They're the new Green Minister here of children. The first order of business was to the transgender of children, not education, not child welfare, not child health. No, make them transgender. And this is like what we're dealing with. And the only thing I can do is that parents, if you have kids, say there was once a different world. Yeah, it wasn't perfect. It had problems, but it was different than this world, and just keep it alive. And I mean, I would thoroughly encourage anyone to become a pagan. I really would, because you handle this stuff much better. You handle it with a lot more flexibility. You're less likely to be. You're not going to sit down on your knees and play, "Oh, please, baby Jesus, deliver me from the other set, the other half of Second Temple Rabbinical Judaism." And again, I mean, be nice to your Muslim neighbours. Most of them will be nice people. Never did you personally any harm, but what can you do? What can you do? All I can just do is just remember that. I think a great inspiration would be India. Okay, India has been literally assaulted non-stop by the Islamic world and the Christian world, non-stop, and the Chinese communist world, and also those forces within their own country. There's 120, something like 120 million Muslims inside India, and their country was torn in three really, if you include Bangladesh, and by Islam, and they've managed to maintain the culture and maintain all this diversity in India. And the thing they've done it with, I'm convinced, is because of their Hindus. The Hinduism, which would be very similar to what if we were still pagans in Europe, our religion would be very, very close to Hinduism, because it all comes from the same Indo-European root. And I think we'd manage much better. And this is why the Christian monks, when they came to Ireland, they changed Irish mythology. This is why I say you can't trust Irish mythology. And they made central godlike figures like the Dagda, this kind of thing. He's like a god. Cuchulainn is like Jesus. He was sacrificed on a rock. The Parthenons were the daughters of Noah. So you can't trust Irish mythology, where you can trust Greek and Roman mythology, because that survived through classical literature. We know exactly. So those people who are Hellenic pagans have a greater chance than the rest of us. And that's probably why the Greeks have fought off, even though they were Orthodox Christians, fought off the Turks for so long that way. But there was still a pagan part in them. Now, and that's I look at India and I say India's managed because they're Hindus. And I think if Europe was pagan and we had all our different pagan gods and goddesses here and venerations and had true pagan holidays, they wouldn't be have it as easy as they're having it now. You see, they wouldn't. This is why communists tried so hard to make India communist, because they saw communism as the way of demolishing Hinduism forever. And they would point to things like the caste system, which the caste system is far more complex than you just being born into a piece of shit. And it doesn't work like that in India really at all. Westerners, particularly the British class system, made the caste system work. In fact, I've got a video about the caste system. I'll put it down here below here so you can watch it in the comments and then make your own mind up. But yep, I'm looking at the statue of Kali in my backyard here. My gnome is Kali. By the way, my postman asked me what is that, and I said it's a goth gnome. She's a goth gnome, and you can remember that. And that's that's it. You know. So remember, India survived. The tools to survive in India was polytheism, Hinduism. And I believe strongly that the tools for us, as Europeans and Westerners, to survive is polytheism. And now, so stop worshipping the dead rabbi on a stick and start worshipping the gods of your people. If you take care.